Hey there, I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and yep, Bruno Mars album bomb week. Shame it's not just that, and it's Billboard BREAKDOwn.
I don't remember.
There's a part of me that thinks that this week is going to be one of transition. Sure, we got the expected Bruno Mars album bomb, and that's following from the Baby Keem and Mega Maroney album bombs last week, but next week is Harry Styles, and while that album's reception's been, let's call it mixed for the moment, he's still set to sell a lot of records. I imagine there's going to be a pretty significant shakeup, and even then we nearly got as many new debuts this week alongside Bruno as we got entries from that album bomb. That's not nothing. Honestly, despite the additional work, I don't think it's a bad sign. I don't want this year to be like 2018 where it's all album bombs all the time. That paradoxically tends to lead to a more radio-dominated year-end list because that's what maintains stability, and I don't think anyone in 2026 thinks that's promising. Even if a bunch of the new entries do kind of suck. I bring this up because our top 10 is a case where, regardless of channel, Bruno Mars is going back to number 1 with I Just Might. And I gotta be honest, after listening to the album more and hearing this dominate the radio, I'm getting thoroughly sick of this song. But even without much in the way of sales right now, it roared back on streaming. It rules the radio. But for how long? I say this because the next fight is probably between our next two songs. The first being Choosin' Texas by Ella Langley at number 2, thanks to still being so dominant on streaming and sales and finally given more crossover for the radio push. And the second being Man I Need by Olivia Dean at number 3, which does not have the same streaming momentum, but it's still running up the radio gains. It's gonna be a margins game, or who breaks first, or rather, what can weather what Harry Styles is likely going to deliver. Although I wouldn't put money on a return to number 1 coming from him. But then we got our second Bruno Mars song, probably the one that's going to be that next big push, Risk It All at number 4. We'll talk more about the song much later on, but it's a softer ballad starting off with tremendous streams and sales, and as soon as radio gets on board, and they will, I can imagine we'll be hearing this for like the next 8 months. Now, all this was enough to push Ordinary by Alex Warren down to number 5. It actually gained on sales, but lost on streaming, but the radio was more consistent than anyone would want, so it didn't fall off that hard. Now compare this to Opalite by Taylor Swift at number 6, where after getting that last-ditch radio boost, it's falling off a cliff in every other category. It's going to be gone a little faster than you would expect, and that opens up a very interesting door for our next new top 10 song, Stateside by Pink Pantheress, featuring Zara Larsson at number 7. It's worth mentioning that the streaming has gone absolutely berserk for this song, even as radio refuses to touch it, which might be because they're lesser known popular names, or maybe because this remix is outright bad and not remotely close to either artist's best, which is really frustrating for me as someone who likes them both. It did move Golden from K-Pop Demon Hunters back to number 8, but that's to be expected. It's collapsing in every channel, and that might as well be the same case for The Fate of Ophelia by Taylor Swift down to number 9. And finally, Back to Friends by Somber is holding at number 10. Chalk this up to its radio finally dying off and not really having enough streaming to hold up. I expect it's probably going to be gone out of the top 10 kind of soon. Speaking of which, our losers and dropouts. And we actually have a few significant exits here. Speaking of Somber, 12 to 12 may have just barely clinched a year-end list spot for 2026. It is borderline, but there's a fair number of exits that are falling well short. I'm not going to complain about How Far Does a Goodbye Go by Jason Aldean finally out, or Gone 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 by David Guetta, Tones and I, and Teddy Swims leaving, but it might have been a little cool for Titi Me Pregunto or Vaya Levarte Pa Puerto Rico by Bad Bunny to have at least another shot. Now, the losers can be chalked up most to album bombs that are fading fast, and let's start off with the 2 from last week. From Mega Maroney, we got Beautiful Things at 45, Told You I Wasn't Gonna Do the Joke Again, Wish I Didn't at 58, Medicine at 62, and Wedding Dress at 94. From Baby Keem, we got Good Flirts featuring Kendrick Lamar and Momo Boyd at 71, and Casino at 88. Outside those, well, J. Cole saw a few continued losses with 2-6 sliding down to 87 and Who the Fuck Is You at 100, and Brent Faiyaz had Butterflies glide down to 62. Then we got a few isolated cases. Tit for Tat by Tate McRae is finally exiting at 41, and Drag Path by 21 Pilots is not remotely holding up off its debut down to 96. But where things get a little strange, they come in our returns and our gains, mostly because I don't have any faith whatsoever in the former, and between album bombs, it's hard to trust in the latter, even if there is more than you would otherwise expect. For our returns, yeah, Boo by Headbands back at 92, and Excavator by Don Toliver came back at 97, and Favorite Country Song by Hardy is sticking around like a bad yeast infection at 99, but I don't expect any of these to make a run or get any higher or make a year-end list. Where I'm more interested in is our healthy list of gains, and let's start off with two pieces of relative good news. For one, I like that I Love It, I Love It, I Love It by Bella K appears to have genuine streaming legs at 32, and Rain Dance by Dave and Thames is also continuing up to 65. More to the point, Zach Bryan had a good week, with Plastic Cigarette at 85 and Say Why of all songs up to 69. Unfortunately, the rest of the news is not good. We're still not done with Dominic Fike because he's got both Baby Doll up to 33 and White Keys off the debut to 61. Someone please tell Gen Z that making this dude's lousy songs from the late 2010s a thing. It lacks profound aura and it serves nobody. Also, my opinion for Fame is a Gun by Addison Rae somehow still sticking around at 89. The last few contain a majority of country songs. Ends of the Earth by Ty Myers is 72, Ain't a Bad Life by Thomas Rhett and Jordan Davis is 73, and Time's Tickin' by Justin Moore at 78, though I will take Nice to Each Other by Olivia Dean up to 74 to class things up at the end. But we are in absolutely album bomb territory here, and I already covered Bruno Mars and The Romantic, among other things, in my review turned rant on my main channel earlier last week, but most of his songs are in the top 40 already. They're going to be covered here, so outside of the best of the worst, well, I guess we got Dance With Me at 42, Something Serious at 46, and On My Soul at 43. Again, not many. Still leaves a very busy week here. It's going to go long. And unfortunately, we're not starting off with Bruno Mars. Number 95, Earrings by Malcolm Todd. I know I got a bit of backlash for describing how much I hated Malcolm Todd's Chest Pain I Love, mostly because it seemed like folks were surprised that I could muster so much animosity towards it. So I figured I would give the song a proper re-listen nearly 2 years later, and yeah, ew, this just makes my skin crawl. Between the sickly Steve Lacy impression and the quite frankly pathetic lyrics and gutless attempts at melody, I stand by my revulsion. So naturally, we're appropriating a song from a mixtape 2 years ago to chart now. And look, the sooner we actually get Steve Lacy back, who has some actual vocal flair, the better. Because this is also just terrible. A huge part of this is the goopy sludge in which Malcolm Todd is processing his keyboards and guitars, which feels slimy and yet too weak to have any impact, which might as well be my description of any of his vocals, where I'm honestly surprised by how much I just hate his singing. I described him before as having an astounding lack of charisma, especially when he can summon no actual presence on that semi-self-mocking bridge. But if I feel that I could credibly do a better job with a karaoke microphone 6 shots in, and I rarely if ever make that comparison because I know how it looks and I know exactly how hard it is to sing live and go beyond good but unremarkable technical proficiency, yeah, that's a problem. And not for nothing, the lyrics suck too. Apparently Todd lost his earrings in this person's bed and is so terrified of actually confronting this person mid-breakup to actually do anything about it, but precisely smarmy enough to be self-aware about that. Dude, I know you were born after 9/11, but have a little spine to either go get your jewelry or move the hell on. This is embarrassing. And sure, I know that's technically the point, but if I wanted to hear a song this pathetic, I'd listen to someone who can actually make it entertaining. Hey Gen Z, you don't need to make this disemboweled Dominic Fike riff popular. It's trash. Next. Number 90, Rocky Mountain Low by Corey Kent and Co. Wetzel.
Rocky Mountain Low.
God, some song titles like this make me wince, and quite frankly, I'm shocked it took this long to get made. I've never been all that impressed by Corey Kent, and Wetzel has promptly squandered all of his positive buzz once he broke through, aka the Parker McCollum trajectory, and yes, I'm still bitter about that. But maybe this won't suck? Well, honestly, okay, maybe it's just the sour vibe I'm in following one of the worst songs I heard in 2026 thus far. I actually don't hate this at all. It's turgid and sour, simmering in ragged country rock guitar phrases against the stalking bass line that only seems to get more weedy as the song continues. But if you want a song all about wallowing in the worst possible high that you can have, where you're fairly certain your girl has cheated on you, but you'd rather listen to a stack of vinyl and stew in bad emotions than confront anybody, which feels distressingly honest on how a lot of guys would actually handle this, okay, there is a place for that. And Corey Kent and Wetzel have semi-decent chemistry for selling it. Now, a song like this does have a low ceiling. Kent is still not an impressive singer, and the lack of a bridge to flesh out the scene does not add much beyond sullen misery. But truthfully, I've lived enough to not hate this. There is some presence, and even if I won't call it great or even that good by any means, for what it is, it works. I'll give him that. Number 79, What He'll Never Have by Dylan Scott.
But what I'll never have is the love I have for you.
Okay, so you want to know why I hate so much of Nashville's self-congratulatory nature around Ella Langley finally being so huge of a crossover act? It's because they've enabled the careers of so many go-nowhere C-list dudes that can't even pass the muster in bro country. We got two of them coming up here next. The first likely being the worst because it's Dylan Scott, and I can't recall a single song from him that I've ever liked. Even that track from 2016 about his girl rapping along to Eminem in the shower, which is mildly hilarious in hindsight. This was a cut left over from March 2024, and my god, who the hell thought this was a good idea to release? I'm gonna skip slow walking it. This is about Dylan Scott talking about if he dies, he hopes his girl is able to move on, but not too much, because to quote him, what he'll never have is the love I have for you. So look, I'm a married man. So is Dylan Scott at this point. He's got 3 kids. He co-wrote this song, and I cannot fathom the thought process that comes with making a track like this, where he says the guy can have the truck and the fishing hole and his house and his dog, but his love for his wife rules paramount over whoever might come next when he's gone. The dynamics of this fantasy, because that is what it is, it's just fucking weird. Pair that with the sour guitar tuning and the miserable hook, that sounds like someone grabbed the worst of a post-grunge-esque Hinder crossover. It comes across as a miserable and possessive, where he hopes after his death his wife will cling to him even if she moves on in some way. There's not even an edge to it in the sound, or any sort of theatrics or gothic melancholy. It's the dullest version of this retrograde bullshit. There is a part of me worried that I wasn't going to find enough truly awful songs in 2026. The year's not been that bad, but if Nashville Radio gives us any sort of legs, yeah, I won't have to worry. Fucking terrible. Number 77, Turn This Truck Around by Jordan Davis.
Girl, long as your memory don't make me turn this truck around.
Hey, that's what we all want. The other Sam Hunt wannabe. With a title that made me, on first look, roll my eyes painfully hard. Sure, dude, you're gonna turn the truck around with a song from July 2025. Good luck with that. Now, by some miracle, this actually isn't all that bad. Once again, post-breakup, where Davis is very much not over it, but his sentiment of trying to avoid the moment that'll have him swing that truck around and go back to her, not terrible, I guess, especially when you pair it with the louder, sweeping reverb guitar tones and the slight rollick and slightly fewer synthetic effects than you normally get from Jordan Davis that have him sound like he's chasing the off-brand Kip Moore vibe than anyone else. And look, Davis is not an inspiring presence on the microphone. He can't really carry the song with any sort of passion or credibility, but it's got some smoky tempo, and even if I'm not impressed, it's better than most of what I've heard this week. I think I'll take it. Number 67, BBB by Juvenile featuring Genesisthegawd.
My ear, you be talking so much, I just start up a fuss, no cap. But you say I'm crazy, girl, you was supposed to be having my baby. Girl, let me know before I walk out this door, cause I need it for sure, and I feel like you played me.
Apparently 2026 is going to be the year where we're going to get rap comebacks from rappers that I never saw it coming. And while the T.I. song is god-awful, mostly because I'm fairly certain Pharrell sabotaged it, T.I.'s having a better year with his beef with 50, I'm actually a little bit more intrigued by what Juvenile's bringing to the table. I feel obligated to mention that Juvenile's not charted since the mid-2000s, and then he went number 1 with Slow Motion of all things in 2004. He's literally not been here in decades, so even as someone who's going to vouch for some of those late 90s and early 2000s albums, I have not really kept up with Juvenile in any way. I have to think this song is charting because of the Megan Thee Stallion remix, which naturally is not the one that was credited here, instead for the Atlanta-based rapper Genesisthegawd, who certainly knows how to deliver that sort of club-based counterbalance that Juvenile apparently wants. And let's make this clear, this is sleazy strip club rap where Juvenile is the clear reminder of exactly where Moneybagg Yo grabbed a lot of his cadence, and he's got the tighter flow and some lyrical switch-ups to be pretty good, if not great, in this lane. This sort of material doesn't exactly lend itself to many unique punchlines, which is kind of a shame when you've got that electric guitar and the sharper piano and the organ backing up the crisp track percussion. I actually really like the production here. And I might as well mention the Megan Thee Stallion remix. It is better. I hate to say that to Genesisthegawd, as this is her breakthrough, but Meg's got better punchlines and way more charisma and attitude. I wouldn't be surprised if this sticks around and Megan ultimately ends up with the featuring credit, but even then, I'm not sure this has got that extra oomph to put it among either of their best. It feels like a collab where they both brought their semi-A game, maybe A- game, but not that added spice to put it into another tier. So yeah, pretty good. Certainly better than whatever a T.I. was trying. Maybe not great. Number 63, Go by BLACKPINK. It's a bad sign when folks are talking about the new BLACKPINK EP with the statement, yeah, real endorsement of their solo careers away from all this. I mean, I wasn't even that hard on Jump, but I think this moment may have aggressively curdled. So I was expecting the worst here, especially as the song was being described as hyperpop by way of Circuit and Chris Martin. Yeah, the one from Coldplay, that one. And I guess you might say is tangential to hyperpop, based off the bassy warps that passes a synth drop, but it's not nearly as glassy or challenging as a lot of material in that lane, especially when they start splicing in acoustic strumming on the bridge, and yet the production's probably the most interesting or flashy part of this song, because the rest of this are the BLACKPINK girls sounding more disconnected and disinterested than ever, trying to flex and demand that the audience only go when they say so, both a force to inspire comfort, but also conformity, and I really wish it was more convincingly fun. If anything, it reminds me of that brief era between dubstep and trap crossover in pop music, when they thought they could crib enough notes from the both in order to make it work, and I'm sorry, this just doesn't have a lot of spark. Not saying it's bad, but if folks are thinking that BLACKPINK is running out of juice, I mean, I would understand why. All I'm saying. Number 54, Nothing Left by Bruno Mars. So we got a lot of Bruno Mars songs to work through, and unfortunately the majority of new songs that we got this week are outright bad and really can't compare with Bruno Mars's best. This is my favorite song from The Romantic, and I think at least some of that is running on pure nostalgia for me. This is the sort of bluesy, country-inflected rock that might have its roots in the 1970s with that fuzz guitar, but structurally and melodically, it reminds me a lot more of those crossover ballads in rock that were a thing in the 2000s. Especially with that slightly distant guitar solo and timbre. All the more true when you consider the lyrics that are all about that relationship that's fizzling out and his desperate hope that love will not slip away. Truthfully, not a lot more than that here. You could highlight how it's the last swing in the album's progression as the penultimate song, but even then, Bruno Mars is no stranger to this brand of desperate melodrama, and I would not put this among his best at all. Still, maybe nostalgia or just a tougher week on the charts, I do think it's a very good song, even if it's playing by the regular notes. I'll take it. Number 38, Why You Wanna Fight by Bruno Mars.
Wouldn't you rather make love tonight?
I've seen folks call this a Silk Sonic B-side. Man, if only this was another version of Leave the Door Open, I'd like it a hell of a lot more. As it is, I like the peeling electric guitar and the soulful strings and piano and the snare building up to the hook for the tension to release like an exhale. But a song like this reminds me why a lot of folks never got Silk Sonic, especially in comparison with this. Half because Anderson .Paak's humor and charismatic verve were a huge factor to tempering the emotional drama, half because if Silk Sonic was trying to diffuse a song about fighting so they can make that sweet, sweet love, it would have more clever self-awareness and flash than Bruno Mars playing it so straight and mentioning going to her friends and family in order to try to get her back, which in a sound that's evoking a lot of adult contemporary poise and retro maturity kind of crosses a line and can't really back it up. As a track that's arguably the album's centerpiece, I mean, I won't call it bad. I wish I liked it a lot more, though. Number 28, God Was Showing Off by Bruno Mars. Look, it's not a good sign when I thought midway through this, I remember NSYNC putting out God Must Have Spent a Little More Time on You, and that was somehow considerably better than this on harmonies alone. And you know what, I get why that might seem a little like heresy, because there is quality here. The supple Philly soul and the horns and the vocal overdubs and the textured percussion, as Bruno Mars anchors that exact same sentiment. It certainly has more respectability than a boy band song, but I think it's the details that matter here. The I was blind but now I see line, the painfully cliched pickup lines, that stiffer hand clap. Actually, that one was in the NSYNC song too, along with that heart of a child line, another reason they were not better than the Backstreet Boys. None of this is clicking with me as strong as you would hope. So yeah, I buy the sincerity. I wish I liked it more. You want to know what I actually think did better? Number 25, Cha 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 by Bruno Mars.
And I'm a cha-cha-cha with you tonight. I like it like that. She working that back. I don't know how to act. Ooh.
Not gonna lie, this is the sort of song that for Bruno Mars would normally lose me. The bachata groove that's half step from bossa nova, Bruno Mars calling this girl Lil Mama while referring to his lemon pepper steppers. That's a strip club reference to Magic City. You might recognize that, given Luke Cornett took his Catholic angst as an excuse to get the Magic City NBA promo game between the Atlanta Hawks and Orlando Magic canceled. And being semi-Catholic myself, boy, I wish I didn't have too many thoughts on that. The Raptors might be paper tiger playoff contenders this year because they can't beat good teams and they don't have size inside. They are a first-round exit if I've ever seen one. You gotta pile on the clumsiest brand of sex negativity on top of that for this season? Okay, dumb tangents aside, this is the sort of sleaze that swings around just far enough to kind of click for me. The gentle groove, the harmonies, the Leisure Suit swing duet paired with a Juvenile interpolation. He's here for a second time, where you cannot remotely take this seriously. Bruno Mars is referencing his own Vegas cocktail bar, for God's sake. There's a chime flutter where he's talking about going to the moon before a disco breakdown. This is pure camp and cheese, and I'm just enough of a sucker to enjoy it unironically. This is really the closest thing from Silk Sonic that we got from Bruno Mars this time around. On a given day, it might be a half step away from the best here. But you want to know what might be the close competition? Number 21, Fever Dream by Alex Warren. So as one of the people who mostly liked Alex Warren's breakthrough last year but had some severe reservations, one of the thoughts that lingered was that he was at a crossroads between the slightly more promising, songwriter-focused folk and rock edges, and the pop soul that gave him ordinary and an easy listening audience that will love him forever, with my fear coming that he's probably going to embrace the latter as guaranteed success and a moneymaker. So I'll freely admit that I'm a little bit stunned that he took neither path with this. Because here, well, it's basically hijacking a lot of what One Republic mined to tremendous critical success on Native 13 years ago, with the staccato pianos and the stomp clap groove and the vocal overdubs, and especially that pseudo-gospel breakdown where I was reminded more than a little of Counting Stars there, as Alex Warren tries to work through this unstable love connection that seems to have sparked from really out of nowhere, where it feels like even her mere shadow inspires questions of love or damnation. However it's gonna go, he doesn't know. Full disclosure, I actually think this is a smart lane for Alex Warren to pursue, and one I really should have considered if he wants both a safe option and one with a little space to expand his sound. The Ryan Tedder lane he could pull off, but this isn't quite working as strongly as I'd hope, mostly because the song feels way too short. The track's 2.5 minutes long. Both Counting Stars and Love Runs Out had the space to let their crescendos really go off. This just feels like playing the cliff notes of those better tracks. Still, while this isn't better than Bloodline or Burning Down or even On My Mind, it might not be cool for me to say it's good, but I think it's kind of decent. Alex Warren's gonna stick around, and if more songs like it are in this lane, he might not even be bad for it. And finally, number 4, Risk It All by Bruno Mars.
I'd risk it all for you.
Here's a not so hot take. If the Bruno Mars album started off with more energy and flair, not this, I think it wouldn't be getting the middling reception it is, especially as Risk It All sets up a bit of a bait and switch. It's interesting that Bruno Mars has sidestepped a lot of his Latin roots in his career, and yet here chooses to bring them into the guitar progression and the mariachi-inspired horns of bachata by way of bossa nova percussion, for a song where it's all about risking it all to keep his lover with increasingly grandiose stunts. Not quite catching a grenade for her, but it's the thought that counts. And honestly, I would have been entirely on board for the grandiose melodrama, more of these ideas across the rest of the album, but the song never seems to take either swing. Neither does the album. The chord progressions are depressingly predictable. The track never goes for the fences. You got all the orchestration, why not go for broke? You're pretty good at it. In other words, it's the sort of tasteful choice that is gonna work on the Hot 100 for the adult contemporary crowd. I can see the radio salivating it over now. I've already seen folks describe this as wedding playlist fodder. I don't even think I disagree. But as someone who will defend Bruno Mars more than most, I can't say it's not disappointing. Not bad, but not special either. And that's this week. Ugh, what a mess. Where I'll say there's no dishonorable mention, because Earrings by Malcolm Todd and What He'll Never Have by Dylan Scott are tying for the worst and some of the most god-awful music I've heard in 2026. Naturally, 2 songs from the spring of 2 years ago, because apparently this year wasn't shitty enough. Now the best of this week, I was legit tempted to give it to Fever Dream by Alex Warren, give him a spot, but I think Bruno Mars is going to snag them both, with Nothing Left at the top spot and Cha 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 in the honorable mention. Although any given week, they could well swap. We'll see. Next week, Harry Styles time, y'all. We'll see how it all falls out. Stay tuned for that. But until then, I'm Mark. You're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse. And I'll see you next time.